So, despite his inability to enjoy a good cup of coffee, I've invited the tea loving Britishman Mike Thakur onto the show today. Mike is the founder and CEO of The Worklodge, a Texas based co working space. And their team is on a mission far greater than having just the coolest swag or local beer on tap. They're on a mission to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the workplace. And I absolutely love that approach. What Mike has done is he's actually created a unique approach to blending ministry and business together. So I've asked Mike to come on and talk about what it actually means and looks like to run a kingdom-minded business. I'm your host, Clay Vaughan, and I'm best known as the CEO of Reframing, a full-service agency that focuses on helping you market your business and share your story. If you're tired of letting your cold, warm, and hot opportunities fall through the cracks, then I think you should take a listen to this quick message from our new sponsor, Rocket Fuel.
When small businesses let their leads slip through the cracks, their top-line revenue suffers. Over the years, Rocket Fuel's all-in-one CRM software has helped thousands of small business owners organize and automate their communications so that nothing slips through the cracks and their top-line capacity can grow. So, schedule a demo today at www.rocketfuel.software.
Yeah, so my name is Mike. I'm originally from the UK. You can probably tell that from my accent if I talk for long enough. But I own a co-working brand, as Clay said. We've got 2 locations in Houston on the north side. And for us, it was just a great way to be able to build some community around business and around entrepreneurship. And we wanted to build a business that we could use with a DNA that was a little bit more impactful. And so we treat it as a purpose-driven business or as a social enterprise, depending on what buzzword or keyword you want to take as your fancy for the day. But our goal was to use the profits of Worklodge and do something good with them. And so we created a 501c3 at the same time, and we fund the nonprofit work through the for-profit business so that we're a little bit freer and not spending all that time on donor management and all the other things that nonprofits have to do. So
Love it. Love it. How did you end up running your own business? I mean, not everybody wakes up one morning and says, "Oh, I just want to start a co-working space." What was the journey to that happening? Was it something you always wanted to do?
No, so this is business number 7 or 8 for me. So I've started a few things over the years. Started back in England in the 90s. I actually ran an internet marketing company before Google existed. I was talking to my son about it today. I'm like, dude, if I'd have just paid attention a little bit more when they came out, bought a little bit more stock, could have gone and written a book on it or something. I could be a Google genius at this point. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, 20-year-old Mike wasn't that smart, and I didn't buy any Google stock, and I still work for a living. So it is what it is. But with the co-working business, I was working in a security role before this. We were known as the Secret Service for billionaires, and we did very unique things for very successful people. And one day I said to my wife, "Hey, I don't want to work out the house anymore. I need to go get myself somewhere to work." Because we didn't have a centralized office, obviously for security reasons. What we did, we had a PO box in the middle of nowhere, so no one was ever going to find out where folks lived. And I went out to look for an office, and the only thing I could find was this executive suite space. I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know anything about executive suites. I just knew that it was $800 a month, and it was awful. I mean, it was 4 walls of drywall, a solid wood door, and I didn't see a human being like all the way in and all the way out. And I thought, why would I go work there? I can see nobody at home. Like, I want to be around people. So in true Mike fashion, I said, "Babe, I don't think I could do a worse job. Don't know anything about real estate, but why don't we go build an office?" And, we built a big one. Let's put it that way. 22,000 square feet and 119 offices was location number 1.
That's nuts. That is absolutely nuts. And it's obviously been successful. Oh my gosh. I mean, you've had quite the journey over the past, you said 7 years, right?
7 years this year. Yeah.
In those 7 years, you've learned quite a few lessons. You've also learned a lot about yourself as a leader. So what would you say that you've come to love about what you do?
I think it just comes down to the heart of what we do. We've always been people. And I think, whether it was working in ministry roles where we got to be around people and, and try and help folks, whether it's through Worklodge. And I know they pay us to have office space, but, we built an environment to help other entrepreneurs be more successful. Like we genuinely see it that We're there to connect people. We're there to help take friction away so they can focus on their business more. And hopefully, the little things that we do, and definitely the things that we do that are over and above that maybe we don't have to do, but we still choose to do them as a business, do make a little bit of difference in the lives of the folks we serve there. Obviously, it enables us to touch people through the nonprofit work as well, because it produces profit that we can use and reinvest.
So obviously at the Work Lodge, you get a chance to serve a lot of people. It's in some cases a revolving door. I mean, that's just the nature of the co-working space. But in others, I mean, you've got long-term tenants. I mean, we've been with you guys for going on 3 years, almost 3 years now. What is something that folks like WeWork, and I mean, there's a co-working space that we use in like the Austin area right now. What would you say is like something you do better than them, that maybe someone would choose you guys over another? Because obviously you've carved out this niche, and I'd love to know what that niche is.
I think about this a lot, and I talk about it a lot actually with the staff, with my folks here at the house, Linda and my kiddos. And I don't know that I'd ever say that we're better than someone else. I think in the service industry, it's really hard to quantify what's better or worse, because we all find it hard to describe great service, but none of us find it hard to describe bad service. And so, you think about the line at McDonald's. No one needs to tell you that a McDonald's line shouldn't take 20 minutes. But if you're there for 2, you don't really think, wow, that was awesome. You just know if you're there for 20, and it shouldn't feel like this. And I think about airlines or, auto manufacturers. What makes a Mercedes better than a Ford? They both got 4 wheels. They both got 4 doors. They both got 4 seats. I mean, the seats are a little comfier. They're a little nicer. Maybe the materials are a little bit higher end. But essentially, you get to the same place in the same amount of time, by doing the same thing, a steering wheel and pedals on the floor. So a lot of it's experience, and it's the intangible way that something makes you feel. You buy a Rolls Royce because it's a status symbol. I mean, you've arrived. Like you can treat yourself to it, and you're at that level, and you're happy for folks to understand you're at that level. And so I think with what we do, a lot of it ties back to those similar intangibles. I always used to say, I want my members to feel like it was a privilege that they arrived, that they got to a place where they could work out of a space like Worklodge. We wanted to be seen and appreciated as, man, this is like a blessing to be able to work from somewhere like this. Like the spaces are awesome. They're class A, they're high end. We didn't cheap out on the stuff that we put in. We don't cheap out on the staff and those kind of things. We want them to feel valued, and we want to make sure that when their business is projected to their clients, that their clients see, oh, wow, they work in a great space. Now, not all co-working spaces can say that, because different sizes of co-working brands serve different areas. The big guys would probably say the same thing. But I think most people would recognize if they went to a Regis type place, it's maybe a little more formal, a little bit more impersonal, maybe a little bit colder in personality and relationship. But that serves a certain kind of person who's looking for that and wants that. I think someone who goes to a WeWork, I mean, they were famous for the beer on tap, the partying all the time, that kind of frat house vibe. And so again, if somebody's looking for that and wants that, I mean, you're not going to find that at a Worklodge. That's not who we are. We wanted to be playful and have some vibe and some uniqueness to us, but we really wanted to value people and value those relationships. And our hope and our goal was that would be worth something to folks, and that they would appreciate that, in the good times and the bad. And I think for the most part, it's worked. I don't know what the average retention rate is in the co-working business. I know that when we analyzed, we've been open about 3 years, and we decided we'd analyze how long did a typical member stay with us. Most folks with Worklodge typically sign about a 1 or a 2 year agreement. Some folks need something shorter. Occasionally someone wants something longer, but for the most part, that's the window. And so I was curious, do people sign a year, stay, and then go? Or, is that not the case? And so we ran this report right about 3 years. And at the time, our average length of member was like 2 years and 9 months or something. So, I mean, literally almost everybody that ever moved in had never moved out. And we just kind of kept filling.
That's fantastic. Well, and I mean, I think you answered a lot of my questions just with that response. I love that. I think most real estate based companies, they think of the tangibles. They think You want X, we have X. You can buy X. But what you just
Yeah.
highlighted is frankly what most businesses get wrong. Every single business, in my opinion, every single business on the planet should be in the service business. Every single one.
Yeah.
And it's because
Yeah.
people buy products and services and subscriptions and all of that. They buy those not from companies, but they buy them from people. And people do interactions with
Yeah.
people. And so if we just think, well, you want X, you can buy X, here's X. Well, you're missing out on one of the greatest opportunities to form relationships. And when relationships form, to your credit, you have higher retentions, you have higher opportunities for upsells, frankly, because as your clients grow, guess what? You can expand their office space. I mean, that's exactly what's happened with
Right.
us as we've grown.
Yeah.
I mean, I've forgotten how many suites we've had with you guys over the years as we've moved around and it's expanded and contracted with COVID. I mean, you guys have been amazing to work with. But when it comes to just the nature of what you guys are doing, I think you answered the question so beautifully that what makes you different, and in my opinion, I know you won't say this, but in my opinion, what makes you better than the WeWorks of the world, than all these other co-working spaces out there that I'm aware of, is the fact that your service is so faith-based, and that faith-based service typically comes from the heart of humble service, the heart of a joyful experience. And I mean, you're just not going to find that anywhere else. It might be the facade that's out there, but once you get into the meat of it, I mean, I have a membership with WeWork, and I'm not trying to trash WeWork at all. I've got a membership with WeWork so that I've got an office space in New York. I've got some places around the country that I can go to and meet with clients. Mike, just so you know, if you decide to expand, I'll sign up for you for your services there. But what I would just say is, like, you're absolutely right. It is a frat house mentality. In some cases, it does stink like a frat house when you walk in. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Right.
So I would just say, like, you guys definitely are doing it better from that perspective. And I mean, it makes sense why you've been inspired to stick with it over the years to continue to offer that service, because that's pretty meaningful.
Well, I was just going to interject. I think, it's interesting you make the comment about even the smell, because it's those details that a lot of folks don't think about. So we literally use different fragrances every month, and we have them around the space, and we change them out on purpose so that the nose doesn't get too used to the same thing. It always smells fresh. It always smells nice. But what I really wanted to dig into was, I think one of the things about being a smaller family business, versus a larger corporate, and especially a business that is built on some values and principles. And I'm sure you found the same thing, and I know you have because we've talked. But sometimes you have to make decisions that cost money to keep that environment and to keep that level of service and to keep being able to provide the things. Not every customer is the right customer, and that can be difficult sometimes. And those things have been hard, especially in the early days, not so much, now that we're a little bit more established, but when you're first starting out and, you haven't got a full space, and you want to try and take every dollar, but look, if I take this dollar, it's going to rub against what I believe or what I stand for, or it's going to rub against the other members in the community, and we want to protect them. And that's some of those intangibles that, folks don't always see, but we may choose to lose money for the good of the community. Yeah. Nobody would ever know that. They just know that the space is exactly what they're wanting when they walk in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would just say, like, if you're a business owner out there who has a brick and mortar space, who has an office, and you're not working exclusively remotely, I would encourage you, follow that mindset, because your clients they'll get it when you walk in. I mean, when you walk in the door and you don't have that Class A experience that represents your values, I mean, you're going to miss out on opportunity. And to your point, Mike, one of the things that has stood out to me over the years is something that we've even included as a core value in regard to our definition of what integrity means. It's all regardless of the cost. I mean, for me, I'm not a entrepreneur motivated to build businesses to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Though that is a perk, that is not the reason. Because, I mean, to be completely honest, I could go make the same amount of money in a lot easier way on the stock market and investing and things like that. But what matters to me, and I know you can too, Mike. So what matters to me is leaving that lasting impression and making a difference in people's lives. And I know that that's your approach as well. We've experienced that in the Work Lodge, and we're very grateful for that. So you've obviously been on this journey for 7 years now, and even beyond that, because you've been building up to starting your company 7 years ago. So it's filled with twists and turns and ups and downs, and I can only imagine the stress that you faced when COVID hit. I mean, we were brand spanking new tenants when we moved in. It was February of 2020. And I remember us having a conversation in March of 2020 and us saying, hey, Mike, yeah. So we got to talk. And it was scary. And that was for me. But I mean, literally, like you were at the whims of your tenants at that point in time. So I know you've had ups and downs, and you could have walked away. I mean, you could have said, hey, look, yeah, this is not worth it. And I'm sure you could have gotten out of it. So what stands out to me about you, Mike, and about your team is the fact that you didn't walk away. And it seems like as we're talking, it's just tied to that value system that you have is you're on more than just a mission to make money. You're on a mission to change the way people live and the way office cultures are developed. So what would you say is tying this to our faith? And I mean, you're a Bible believing Christian who loves the Lord, obviously, and so that's one of the original reasons why I think we got connected in the way that we did. So how do you see kind of that value system blending in to just your overall experience in running the Work Lodge, and how do you see that play out in regard to something that you refer to as kingdom business?
I think COVID's an interesting one, and every business is going to face ups and downs. I read in a book years ago that being an entrepreneur is like surfing. If you don't want to get wet, you're in the wrong place. Like, if you don't want to ride a wave, you're in the wrong place. I mean, that's how it is. I don't know that I ever expected a wave like COVID. We're a family business. It's my wife and I. We've got no investors. We've got no partners. We don't believe in debt. So, we don't have any loans. And it was very challenging. I think the COVID year or two probably left one of the deepest scars, for me, just on an emotional level that life has thrown my way. Don't know if I'm really over it or not, if I'm honest. It's definitely changed the way I view the business and changed the way that we view the future. And I don't necessarily think that that's all, for the better. I think some of it's probably for the worse. And I think that's just the journey of doing what we do. And, it sounds great to say, well, it's God's business and he's got it all in control. And, and I fully believe that. But at the same time, we're not 100% occupied. So is that God's fault or mine? Well, it has to be mine because it's not his. We've got to be good stewards and we've got to handle those things well. So, we've got to find that balance and I guess walk that tightrope of how much of this is my responsibility and how much of it is God's. Because I can't just sit back and say, well, God, you know what, it's COVID, so go fix it. I don't think he's a genie in a bottle, but somehow he walks alongside and helps us find a way through.
That's brilliant. So you run your business as a kingdom business. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it means we make decisions based on biblical principles, and we built the business on a biblical foundation. And there's a very real difference between someone who is a Christian who happens to own a business and a Christian business owner. I fall in that second camp where I choose to run the business in as biblical a way as I can. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm sure there's a few folks out there that don't think I am, but whenever we've made choices and whenever we've had to be intentional. We've intentionally chosen to try and follow biblical principles and to try and think about what would Jesus expect. You know, if he was the customer, would we treat him this way? If he was the staff member, would we treat them that way? Would I pay them that way? You know, would I handle this request for time off differently at, 3 hours notice or whatever? And it sounds really easy to do, but again, you only really truly understand that when the difficult situations come or the difficult decisions, and you've got to make a decision that just grates against every single thing you stand for, but you're trying to do the godly thing, and you're trusting that he's gonna make it right at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when you obviously you've worked with a lot of Christian business owners over the years who are also trying to run kingdom businesses, myself included. So what would you say is just kind of like this common thought, common impression of what it looks like to run a Christian business that you really don't agree with? Like, in fact, you passionately disagree with?
I think it ties in with the deeper issue of the fact that a lot of people call themselves a Christian, but I don't think they've got a fully realized understanding of what that means. If I call myself a Christian because I believe that there is a God out there, or I believe in Jesus, according to the Bible, well, the demons believe that. So that's not quite enough all by itself. There's a little bit more to it. And so then, you've got to ask the question, okay, well, what is it that makes me a believer? What is it that makes me a Christian? It's not just what I believe. It's how I act. It's who I am. It's the choices I make and the decisions that I make. And I think for me, as someone who's around a lot of companies and, who's dealt with some interesting, challenges over the years, I think the thing that bothers me the most is the facade. It's the pretending. And I don't even know if it's intentional or they just don't necessarily realize. But don't run your mouth saying you're a Christian business owner if you don't know what it means, and you're going to do dumb stuff that's going to be an embarrassment to the kingdom. I find it embarrassing.
Preach it.
Other people find it embarrassing. And well, the most uncomfortable thing for me is that I have staff members who don't believe what I believe, who have said to me, Mike, here's another problem. It's another one of those Christians. And it's like, how do I respond to that? Like I'm trying to teach them by example that as a Christian, I can run a business a certain way. And yet the biggest issues I've had with customers in my business are generally with Christian business owners, and usually around money. And everybody's watching, and I'm praying for these folks to get saved that work for me, and they're watching everything that's happening saying, well, Mike, here we go again. Why do you keep trying to help people? Like, it doesn't work out. And I sit there and shrug my shoulders and I think, Jesus, like, can I just slap somebody? Like, can I just tell them, like, this is an embarrassment to the kingdom, dude. Stop. Like, stop doing that.
When it comes to this idea of kingdom business is not slapping a Christian fish on your business, on your work truck. And I would say that's definitely a struggle, because when someone hears that I'm a Christian and I talk about my faith, not like vocally to everybody, but to people who I talked about my faith to a client of mine for the first time, and he's been a client for 3 years, and it was just the right timing to talk about that. And he was like, Clay, I'm not surprised, but like, just so you know, this is not my experience working with Christian businesses. If you plan on saying, hey, I'm going to be a Christian businessman or Christian businesswoman, make sure that you put teeth to that with your core values, and you live those out regardless of the cost. So what would you say to someone that maybe is running a Christian business that might be a little bit earlier on in their journey compared to where you are right now? What would you kind of caution them about as it relates to running a kingdom-minded business and just being a believer who loves the Lord and wants to honor Him?
I think my best advice would be trust the people around you less and trust God a little bit more. I think we look so much to other people, and there's so many groups out there. There's so many folks that call themselves, kingdom driven this and faith driven that and whatever else. And I know a lot of them, and they're great people. I'm not saying they're not,
Yeah.
but we spend so much time looking for everybody. I want to go to this luncheon and that breakfast and whatever else. And again, those things aren't bad, but it's balance. If that's what you're doing, but God's not first and he's not primary, I
Hmm.
don't know where you think you're going to end up on this journey, but it's probably not going to be a good place. If you're truly going to build a kingdom business, make no mistake, the Bible is clear that there is an enemy that wants you to fail. So if
So
you
true.
think you're going to go build a kingdom business and you're going to do all this stuff and shout about Jesus and whatever else, then you just put a big target on your back. And if you're not ready for that, it's not going to end well, and it's not going to be anybody else's fault. So
Yeah.
figure out that relationship. And then as you look to other people, find the good ones. Find people like that in the kingdom who don't need something from you in return. And I suspect you will find your walk and your growth will go better
Yeah.
because you'll build a more genuine relationship, and you won't make it without friends. Like, you won't make it without friends who can pull you along, who are further down the road, who can help you grow. And likewise, you'll find yourself in that same place one day if you get this right, and you'll be the one on the other side of that can help other people along.
Over the years, I've realized that the people that I tend to trust the most in business are the ones who have spent some time in ministry before coming into business and had a really hard time at it. Like it didn't go well, because
Right,
for you to
right.
still have your faith after going through a hard time, having gone through the process of raising funds, living on meager means, I mean, like that shows some character right there, and that also shows some faith. With that in mind, I love the foreword that Bob Goff, and if y'all haven't read, he said, "Your book is a bold call to action for innovators willing to step outside of an antiquated mission ministry funding model." What does that mean?
Hear my heart on this, right? My goal isn't to say that anybody's doing everything wrong or anybody's doing everything right. Like, we're just trying to figure this out. But
Yeah.
I think what Bob's trying to communicate there, and what we're trying to communicate in the book is this: if you look at the world today, the current model is we either think that the professionals in the church are going to go reach people, or the professionals for some 501c3 are going to go reach people.
Hmm.
Both of those folks have no money.
Yeah.
The only way they get money is by asking for it. So they are essentially beggars in the 21st century. Like that, let's just be clear.
Yeah.
Whatever the connotation, that's the only way they can fund. Why would we think that's the best that Jesus can have when there are capable people in the kingdom that can go out and generate profit? So now we've got the money and we've got people because we can pay staff. So in actual fact, the current model of church ministry mission, they can't fulfill any purpose without someone else.
Yeah.
As business owners, we can do it all without anyone else because we can pay for it, we can staff it, we can fund it. I mean, we've got competencies and skills at building things. Like, we can do it all. And so, the book really is that challenge to say, could it be that we just veered too far the wrong way?
Hmm.
What if we don't need all these professionals? What if we never needed all these professionals? And what if they're here because they're a necessity because we fail to step up and do the right thing? I mean, at the end of the day, God wants to reach people. If all the business owners and entrepreneurs are so blind and we just refuse to step up, well, someone's got to do something. So then let's call in the B team. And they're doing a great job as the B team. And I don't mean it in a derogatory way at all.
Sure.
I just mean it that was never the intentional design. And I think Paul proves it. You had 12 apostles who were all entitled, if we want to call it that, to be taken care of through whatever that little kitty was of money that was being donated and given in. And Paul said, yeah, but I built tents and I paid my way and I paid for everybody else's way that was with me. And he literally says the words, I did this to be an example to you. And I think we overlook that and we don't understand the depths of what he was saying, because he was the super apostle, right? I mean, he wrote half the New Testament. So he was literally setting an example that said, these other guys were with Jesus and they're doing it that way, but I'm telling you, I'm going to do it this way. Like, shouldn't he have been writing more letters? Shouldn't he have been speaking more than making tents? But he still wrote half the New Testament and changed the world and had time to make tents and go be in the marketplace. And I think he got it. It put him around people. If you
Hmm.
want to reach people, go to where they're at. Don't expect them to come to where you're at. And I think by making tents in the marketplace, he was placing himself in the best place possible to impact as many people as possible. And I think it's a really, really stark kind of contrast to the models that we've got today. And that's why we've got a lot of problems. You know, I came across this stat, and I talk about it in the book. You could cure world hunger, completely cure world hunger. According to the World Health Organization, about $116 billion would take care of it. Okay. The American church gets 150 a year
Hmm.
in donations and
Hmm.
spends over 90 on it on buildings and staff. Now, again, I'm not down on the American church. I'm just saying, if I was Jesus, I'm thinking I'll cure world hunger and I'll still be $34 billion better off versus let's have a bunch of buildings and people working for me, but you know, there's like 2 billion people or whatever that don't have water to drink. I'm struggling with that. Like, I'm really struggling with that.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate that model, and there's a couple people, and I don't want to just say, hey, look, if you're in ministry full time and you take a salary from a church, we're not ragging against you right now, so don't worry about that.
No,
But there's definitely a
no.
unique opportunity that bivocational ministers have, because the ministry doesn't stop the moment you put on your hard hat to go to work. The one of the people I respect a lot in my life is my brother-in-law, Jonathan Price. He actually came to me and he was like, "Hey, I'm wanting to start a coffee company, a coffee roastery to help fund the ministry." And so he's done that, and he's Light to Dark Coffee, amazing coffee. It's high end. You should try it. In fact, Mike, if you want to fund a ministry and fix your coffee problem in Worklodge, check it out. lighttodarkcoffee.com. Anyway, all that to be
You know, I
said,
don't
like,
drink coffee, right? So
I
all
know
I can do is
you're
go off the
British. You
smell
don't
of it.
understand it. You don't understand the value of coffee, right?
No, I
Um,
don't.
oh gosh, you guys have improved a lot, so thank you for that. I think you've taken a step up away from Folgers now, so hats off to you, my friend. But with all that being said, I would just say, like, I respect and want to empower, and I love investing in businesses. And so if I'm someone who comes to me and says, "Hey, look, I have this idea for a business that's gonna fund the ministry," I'm like, "Hey, sign me up. I'll put my money in that all day
Yeah,
long." So I love that model, and
yeah,
I completely agree. When I was a missionary, it was tough fundraising. I mean, I felt like half my time was spent just asking for money and just
yeah,
feeling like I needed to keep up to date with everybody, so they would keep sending money, and it was just not. I don't feel like that's
yeah,
healthy. I mean, there's a lot more tools now to automate all that communication, but like the simple fact is, like, if I had spent, and I ended up spending the same amount of time after a while just doing video editing and graphic design and all that kind of stuff to fund the ministry. But like, it was the same amount of time, and this way I was actually being able to leverage my skill set to fund the ministry. So like, I see a whole lot of value in that. So just to kind of to tie all this up and give some folks that are listening some action, like, what do they do about all of this? I mean, this sounds pretty overwhelming for people who haven't really thought about this as a model for business. um, what would you encourage them? What would you leave them with as just kind of the next step?
You know, I think if you're a business owner listening to this and you're thinking, okay, is this me? Is this not me? I don't even know where I fall on this. You know,
Mm,
maybe a simple tool, you know, or a simple action that you could take is sit down with a journal. You know, look at your business and just ask this simple question, like, how much of what I do in business looks the same as any other business that's not led by someone with faith? And
mm,
if everything you're doing looks just the same as everybody else's, I think that answers the question for you. You
yeah.
know, if a lot of what you're doing is very different, that also answers the question for you. So I think that self awareness is a great place to start. Definitely take that time, you know, to have some quiet time with you and with Jesus and
Mm,
just talk to him about what's on your heart. Try and understand, you know, what is on his heart and what he's got for you. One of the chapters in the book I write about is something I call glimpses, where I'm a big believer that if you look back in life, you will see glimpses of things that really are deposits from God of your future. And what I mean by that is, one example, when my wife and I first got married, we went to Bible college together. And so we would go for walks every day because it was a small village, wasn't a whole lot to do. There was no internet, there was no phones. I'm that old, and when we walked, we would talk and we would dream about the future. And one of our dreams was we wanted to build a children's home. And we had no money, not really a whole lot of skills. We're at Bible college thinking we're going to go into ministry. So we're not really thinking we're ever going to have any money. And yet this was still a dream for us. Well, we built 3 of them now. We'll probably build some more in the future. And I think that was just one little deposit, from God that was there as a glimpse of a future that was to come that we could build towards. And so I think for whoever you are listening, look back in your life and look for those glimpses of, non-selfish things that really do align with scripture and could be something that is laid there from God. And just talk to him about it. Say, look, if this is from you, if like this is an area I'm supposed to lean into more, like let someone come my way, open a door, like give me a nudge or something. I mean, he's a big God. He can do that. Yeah. Just be open to that and then keep your eyes open. Pay attention. Not every opportunity that comes your way is a God opportunity, that's for sure. But just see what happens and, and see the people that come into your lives. I know a couple of years ago, I started intentionally praying that God would just bring good people into my life. Whatever that is for you, be intentional about those prayers and write them down, and look for him to actually answer, believe that he actually will do something with it. And don't just forget about it, 2 weeks later and move on to the next thing.
So, Mike, you've obviously talked about your book. You've talked about Worklodge. You've talked about all that you've got going on. You've talked about the children's home. How can people engage with you? What is their call to action here? How do they take the next step if they want to hear more about the Worklodge or about your book? What do you recommend for them?
I think the central hub is just the website, mikethakur.com. From there, you'll find links to social, that kind of stuff. I'm not super active on social, but I'm starting to do the Instagram thing and all that. So if you go to mikethakur.com, it'll link you to anything you want to go. Wherever you are active, you'll find a version of Mike there, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever.
Love it. Love it. Well, Mike, thanks so much for being a part of this episode today. I know that I've gotten a ton of value and I have no doubt that our audience has as well. So to everybody out there, thanks for tuning in for Good Business, and we'll see you next week. If you like this podcast, then please consider subscribing now and share it with your friends, family, and any other business leaders who you believe would find value in the topics we discuss. You can learn more about each guest, any of the resources that we discuss at my website, www.clayvaughan.com. I also want to give a shout out to Rocket Fuel, our show sponsor. Rocket Fuel is an amazing CRM that has allowed my companies to grow exponentially. In fact, one of my companies went from converting 30% of its leads to converting 80% of its leads without seeing a reduction in lead volume. So I highly recommend you check out Rocket Fuel. And we'll see you next week on Good Business.